Is the microphone working? Maxie wants to come in. Who's this little baby? Say hi. Okay. So, welcome to this Coraline nail video. I'm literally doing a lunge right now. I don't know if you can see. This is so stupid. I need to just get a chair. So I got this new microphone. I'm very excited about it. I hope it sounds good. I also did my voiceover with this, so I hope that sounds good. This video is basically just me doing my Coraline set and explaining how I did everything. I hope you enjoy. Let me know if you like these nail videos. I will be doing more on other sets I do. I also have a TikTok where I post way more than I do here, so if you want to follow me on there, I do a lot of nail videos. I'll put it in the description below. See you in the outro. So I basically don't have a lot of different colors, so you'll see me mixing a lot. I wanted a bit of like a more grey toned blue, so I mixed black and white. I was just trying to match the picture of the box, so I did, I think, just 2 coats of that. And then I did the black stripes to use my very long liner brush. Super useful for doing long straight lines. I actually only really have this liner brush. I need to get some shorter ones for like more intricate things. I am quite proud of how straight I got the lines. And then once I had all the lines done, I went on to sculpting the buttons. So I have this 3D gel thing from this brand. I don't know how to pronounce that. It says non-stick, but it is sticky. I cannot really touch it with my gloves. Like, I can sometimes if I get fresh gloves. They're not warm yet from my hands. I think it's okay, but I try and avoid using my gloves. But even like to the tools, it like really sticks. I don't know if you can see. It's literally the most annoying thing ever. I have not yet figured out a good way to use 3D gel. It is like a love-hate relationship because I love making 3D things, but I just wish it didn't stick to everything and that I could actually use my hands. It doesn't make sense. Anyway, I rolled a little ball and then I squashed it down. This is like the tool that came with my little sponges, and I used it to like make a little border, and it's stuck. Sometimes it helps to just wipe your tools with some cleanser. It should be a little bit less sticky. And then with my dotting tool, just made some holes for the button. Then I painted the button black. My black, as you can see, is quite sheer, so I had to do a few coats of that. But it's very like runny, so it will like seep into all the holes and then there'll just be too much, so I had to like keep scooping it out. Yeah, it would have been much easier if I just had black 3D gel, but yeah, I don't know, I'm quite stingy with like nail products. It's impossible to get every single color that you'll ever need. Maybe black would be helpful. But anyway, I just painted on a little thread and then I used one of my tools on the end of my cuticle pusher to make the little hole of the needle. Basically just a lot of like adjusting with my silicone tools. If anyone has any advice for 3D, let me know. I drew a little bit of the string onto the 3D just to look like it's going in and out. That was the end of the nail. So difficult to top coat 3D because the top coat really seeps into all the cracks and crevices and then it just becomes not 3D anymore. That was the first nail. I have like 9 more nails to go. Okay. Nail number 2. I haven't watched the movie since like last year or the year before, so I don't actually remember, but Google said that this was called a hagstone. For this background, I wanted a purple. I don't have any purple, so I mixed red and blue together. I do need to get some better brushes though, because these brushes, there's always like lint on it and I just can't get rid of it. If I'm gonna be mixing so many colors, I need a good brush. And then I wanted a bit of an ombre, basically like a darker shadow in the middle. I've been trying to learn how to like do ombre. Yeah, I do not want to get an airbrush. I don't know why professionals still use an airbrush. I'm trying out the sponge method. I have tried eyeshadow before and it doesn't always look good. I read that it helps to wet your sponge in cleanser before and then it kind of like won't soak as much of the polish. And then I use the same color to do these little swirls. I wanted them very like faint in the background. I dabbed it with a sponge as well just to kind of mute them out and make them look a bit more faint. I basically just put a ball on top and then use my silicone tools. You can't see because I'm so bad at like making sure the nail is in shot, but I flattened it and also used the silicone to make the triangle edges, basically. Another dotting tool to make the hole in the middle. And then I have this green color. It was like the perfect color for the stone, Without curing, I added the highlights because I wanted it to like blend in and be like marbly, because that's what the stone in the movie looks like. So I added like a bit of a darker, I mixed my green with black and just made it a bit darker. I also added the white highlights. It turned out so good, so I was really proud of this one. Welcome to the next nail. The dragonfly one. I wanted the background to look like her hair. I made it a little bit more purpley. Did 2 coats of that. Oh, I did not show this before. What I also do with my sponges, which I learned from the internet, dab them on some tape just to get rid of any lint. I just did the ombre on the outside. This one actually turned out quite good, the ombre. I think it's just easier to do outside than have like an ombre in the middle. You can see here when I top coat it, it looks so crisp. On top of that, I got to sculpting the dragonfly. I did a little cylinder and you can see that it's getting stuck to my tools. I made a little tiny ball for the head, but I put it on top of the cylinder. They kind of like melt together. Oh, I also cut off the bottom. So I thought it was too long and that just caused lots of issues. Somehow I managed to kind of like mold it back together. And then by the time I finished smoothing out the tail, the head looks great now. It's all fused together. So I cured that and then started on each different wing. I used my silicone tools to flatten it first and then push on the sides to create the shape I wanted. Made a little bit more of a gap in between the wings when the gel was just started to fuse. Make sure you cure if you're done with a section, because if you're doing like line work it'll spread. If you're doing 3D gel, the 3D gel just like flattens naturally, like it just like loses its shape, so make sure you cure. And now onto the painting. For this one, unfortunately you cannot mix from primary colors. This bit was super easy. I just used a dotting tool to add all the little dots. That was the end of the dragonfly nail. This one was pretty simple. It's the pinky. This design comes from, I think this was one of the Soul Children's eyes or something. Oh yeah, I think maybe she found it in the circus. Instead of doing a ball, I just did it on the whole nail. Oh, and this is where I get to another method that the internet told me was good for ombre. I don't really know what they're called. Like, I've heard it called pat gels. Gel pots. They usually come in pots. It's basically like a thicker pigmented gel, and it's like the consistency of like thick paint. The point is that it should be like thick enough and pigmented enough to make the ombre better. With this white, I really feel like it did show. I really like how it turned out. Then I just did a star. Stars are hard, but I basically just do the A first, and then I do the horizontal line, and then once you do those 3 lines you can just join everything up. I also like touch it up a bit. I extend the points a bit to make it a bit more like pointy and precise. I'm pretty sure the gel that I'm using to draw the star was the thicker white gel. These are also made for line art. They're not as runny, so they can like stay in a crisp shape. The next nail is the infamous spiral. Now, I didn't really have a plan going into this. It's one of those nails where it's like you just kind of have to wing it and like do a bunch of random lines and hope for the best. I started off with translucent blue, which I made by mixing blue and base coat. I used the regular blue to do the spiral. You could barely see it. And I started adding some purple. I added some, it was kind of like a pale purple. That really sealed the deal. And also I did this all without curing anything. I wanted it again to like mix well. A lot of it at the end I did off camera, but I basically just kept adding more and more spirals with a lot of like overlapping paths and stuff in the tunnel. So I tried to encapsulate that. Comment down below which nail so far has been your favorite, but we've got a lot more to get through. Alright guys, I wanted to do more ombre. I don't think this nail you can really see the ombre. I got these thick gels as I was explaining, and I got 3 from one brand. Those 3 were so good. And then I just wanted to try out 2 different brands just in case. This blue, when I opened it, it's just a clear gel. And then I read the side, it said mix well before use. I had to really dig in the bottom to get the pigment, and as you can see, it's like all grainy. I think now it's not as grainy anymore, but my biggest issue is that it's not as pigmented as the other ones. This one is like more of like a jelly. So when I tried to do this ombre on the blue, it just didn't really work. And then I just used a bit of a yellowy white to do these little stars. Okay guys, on to one of my favorite nails of the set, a completely different vibe. I wanted to add some colour to it. I've really got into my colour mixing here. I don't know if you've seen the fuzzy sweater nails, striped nail, but the colours are all kind of blended in, ombre to look like a fuzzy sweater. So that's what I was going for, and the theme was also Coraline's like gloves. Although this was not the accurate colours, every colour in these stripes was made with this thick gel. Now this nail was a lot of trial and error, but I'll explain the method that I found worked the best. And that was painting on with a brush first, just to get the pigment on. Curing the solid colours to have a kind of background. When I started blending it with the sponge, it basically just absorbed it. After you've already cured your solid colours, then you can do another coat on top of that with the ombre. You're just adding the ombre on top. After that, I added 2 buttons. The theme of this set is ombre, so I added some ombre. This one turned out so freaking cute. The cake nail, I feel like I already did a lot of complicated designs, so for this one I kept it simple. Again, I mixed this color with some like yellows and reds. I just wanted to do the whole nail as the cake to replicate the candles on the cake. I did some yellow dots around the edge. I also added dots of cat eye. I don't really get how to work magnets and cat eye, so I don't know what I did. I think it looked fine. It kind of just replicated like the flames of the candle. And then the writing, wrote out welcome home with my tiny little brush. It turned out pretty good. Like, why is my handwriting on a nail better than my real handwriting? But I was trying to replicate like the font of the actual cake, so I think this is from the poster. It's the moon and the like spider hand over the moon. And then of course I had to ombre the middle, which was kind of counterproductive because I put the moon in the middle, but I kind of wanted it like coming out from like behind the moon. This ombre did not go as well. I drew out the moon. This is from my liner brush, it's like the lid of my liner brush. I added some grey. I tried to make it look like a moon. Then I cured it, and then I did the grey buttons. I kind of wanted it very faint, obviously like it was part of the moon, which is how it is in the poster. And then this was like the hardest 3D sculpting I've ever done. 3D gel just looks very like soft and puffy, and I didn't know how to make them look sharp, but I tried my best. I just tried to make very thin streaks. I started off trying to do each spider leg segment, you know where the joints are. I tried to make those individual. There's about 20 individual pieces. I just committed to using one long streak of gel, use my tools to make it look sharp on the edges. I think I did as best as I could. I had to readjust a lot, like cutting things off, reshaping. If I left any sticky gel on the nail, I just went in with some cleanser. Actually, this is a good point. I like to already add a top coat on before I start adding sculpting gel. If I need to wipe stuff off, I'd rather be wiping on a top coat and not on like colour. Sometimes it does take the colour off, but I make sure that I do a top coat that stays tacky so that when I put the 3D gel on top, it can still stick to it. This doesn't always work because I end up taking the 3D gel off and then I redo it, and then I have to wipe off tacky layer anyway. But yeah, I painted them black. Kind of like the look of like the sheer black instead of making them like full on thick black. Alright, we're on to the last nail. This was similar to the other fuzzy sweater one I did. This time I actually tried to go with the colours of the glove that Coraline wore, but I used this brush this time, which actually really helped with creating like the fuzzy borders. After a couple coats, I started kind of adding more green between the borders of the colours and then trying to blend it out with the sponge. But again, for these two colours, I used my thick gels, and then I did the stripes, and that kind of, I made it a bit more like jelly sheer so that it kind of looked like the stitching of the sweater. But yeah, then I started doing the keys, so same procedure for the button. Apart from the spider hand on the moon, this was the hardest 3D thing to sculpt. Sculpting that bit under the button, oh my god, it just was looking, it was looking rough, and it kind of looks like a binky. It was not going well, so I redid that a couple times, and then finally got something I was happy with. And then I went on to doing shaft of the key. I could not get it short enough. I'm like, I cannot make this any shorter, this is already so tiny. And then when I put it on the nail, it's like humongous. These nails really do be small because I have no perception of how big things are compared to a nail. I did not film this. I don't know, I just needed to get it done. The plan was to paint the string, not have it 3D. I was trying to make it simpler. The more I thought about it, the more a 2D string just didn't make sense. So I made it 3D. And then I painted the key kind of like a greyish colour because I wanted to also add ombre black edges. And then I did the string a more brown tinged colour, and I did not do this very neatly. I was just like, I need to get it done. This was the last day that I had with time to finish my nails, so I was on a tight schedule. After this day I had to come home to cat sit Maxi, and I don't have all my nail stuff. I had to finish this nail that day, so the painting was not the neatest. This was the fun bit. I used this brush to do shading around the edges, and it just like added that extra bit of dimension. It was time for the top coat. I was so excited. I was like, I am top coating my last nail of the set. This is so exciting. We've made it. So yeah, if you're curious, each nail took me at least like 2 hours. Everything together, it probably took me roughly 20 hours. If I averaged 2 hours a nail, some took longer, some took shorter. Yeah, make sure to like the video and subscribe so that it makes it worth it. I hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned for more content. Hopefully I'll do a Christmas one. Wish I could do more Halloween ones, but I think that took up most of the Halloween season just to do the Coraline ones. So I think I'm out of business for the rest of the season. And I will see you next time.